Rico.
Dr. G, what's up, man?
So great to see you, man.
Likewise, bro. We're back
So
at it
excited.
again.
Yep, we're at it again. We got a star-studded group tonight.
Awesome. Well, I'm privileged to be amongst the stars, man. I'm privileged just to be here.
I feel the same. I feel the same. So we'll let the room fill up and all of our panelists come in and welcome everyone in for what I'm sure was a full day of dentistry, and settle into helping the world.
Sounds wonderful, man.
So hey, Ali, Meenal.
Hey. Hello.
Jennifer.
Hey.
Jennifer, you go by Jenny, right? We call you Jenny?
I go by Jenny, unless you're a telemarketer.
Okay, fair enough. So we're going to have 11 total panelists tonight. So as the room starts to fill in, I'm very excited. I'll make sure everyone is comfortable and in position. We're gonna first and foremost, just before anything, thank Ali for having this beautiful, beautiful inspiration to form a mastermind on Instagram. And it truly was, it was really impactful on me personally, and listening to everyone's stories. And so this is a beautiful, beautiful manifestation of that, Ali.
No, thanks, Brett. But it really was like a team effort. It was everyone who came out to learn, and I really appreciate you taking the stride and putting this together. This is quite wonderful.
I agree. It's wonderful. Love seeing these faces. So yeah, so anyone who's already logged in, so definitely want to encourage you to use the chat box. You can also use the question and answer box, as we will be addressing questions. There's Ashley. Welcome in, Ashley. So
Ashley, you didn't dress up this much for our mastermind groups. Come on, what's going on?
I love the top. It's cute.
We can't hear you.
You're muted, Ashley.
Okay, hey, it's the typical, hi, it's a typical, webinar outfit. So I won't show you what's on the bottom, but definitely put on a cute top. So thank you for noticing.
Bottoms definitely don't count in webinars, which is great.
Yay. Yay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Meenal.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Ali. Hi, Dave. Hi, Rico. I don't know you, but hi.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like I'm underdressed now. I see what everybody else got on. I got on like an old Kanye West looking t-shirt.
Oh, good. Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Hi.
So great. So we'll get started in just a minute, and then as everyone just fills in, they fill in, because we have to keep good time tonight so that we can keep our attendees on schedule. So for those of you who have tuned in as we approach 7 o'clock here, you're looking at essentially a mastermind that formed by Dr. Ali Bhatia, who's up there, and he's a wonderful service he offers. It's called Course Karma. And he put together a mastermind on Instagram of people to start to talk about race and to talk about what was happening in the country a few months ago. And I personally had a lot of healing from those sessions, and felt collectively that we wanted to bring this to the whole world so that everyone could be a part of these discussions. So although there's so much to talk about, and each of us has a voice, and hi, Saleha, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Tonight's goal is to provide an opportunity for multiple voices to speak their truth. Now, being that we're confined by time, it's going to mean shorter statements, but powerful ones. And so we're going to kind of keep it moving. There's Fiona joining. So we have, let's see. Yeah. So everyone, I think, but Christian, right?
Hi, guys.
Fiona,
Hey, Fiona.
yes. So Christian's going to be joining in. He was running a little bit late. So I'm going to officially welcome everyone in. This is a roundtable discussion on racial healing in dentistry. And the faces that you're looking at have taken
Uh-oh.
Did he cut out for you guys too?
No.
I live in the boonies, so I never know if it's me or somebody else.
All right.
Brett, you
Am I
cut
back?
out.
You're
back.
back. You're
Yeah.
back.
Okay, I'm back. So this is it says my internet is unstable. That's a bad start. All right, how am I now? Am I okay?
Yes.
You're good.
Okay. So this is a mastermind that's been put together, and we are coming to share our voices on such an incredible and important topic of the day. And we don't want this topic to go away. We don't want the conversation to cease. And so we want to invite you in to hear multiple voices, this beautiful, diverse group of dental professionals, just such a talented group and so willing and able and just eager to help improve race relations in the world, but certainly within the dental profession. And for me, and I'll just start it off, my feeling on what I've learned over the last several years, and we're going to do an opening statement. First, let me introduce everyone. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Rico Short, the endodontist to the stars, good friend of mine, great colleague, board certified endodontist. We have Dr. Danielle Cascioli, one half of the Dental Yogis, and essentially a family member to me. Dr. Christian Powell, her fiance, who will be joining us shortly. Again, Dr. Jenny Vites is here, Dr. Ashley Azadi, Dr. Nate Yang, the dude DDS, love that handle. Dr. Saleh Mahmoud is here. Fiona Mattressing, who's a wonderful dental hygienist, has joined us. Dr. Ali Bhatia, again, who is essentially the creator of this mastermind. Dr. Mino Patel, and myself, Dr. Brett Gilbert. So we welcome you all. We're so grateful for your support. We find that in this moment in time, it's so essential for voices to be heard. And you're looking at a beautiful, diverse group of voices. And so I'm going to be moderating this evening. I'm going to be gently nudging if we need to, because there's so much to say, but we don't have a tremendous amount of time. But I look at this as like, when I was a kid, there was a song, We Are the World, and they had like every pop and rock and roll star as part of the song. And their parts were short, but collectively it packed a punch. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish tonight. So it's so important to understand that the goal here is healing. It's about racial healing in dentistry. And I'm going to have each of the panelists have an opening statement. I'm going to start real quickly just as part of the introduction with mine. And mine is that through these past several months, I've learned a tremendous amount. And the thing that I've learned the most is sort of an eye-opening understanding of how much people that I know, that I care about, that I interact with all the time are dealing with racial injustice on an hour-to-hour basis every single day, literally every day. And I think that the awareness of that for me was really overpowering, because it hurt so bad to hear the stories of how people have to adjust things within their day or sort of let so much roll off their back that really hurt and sting. And so, I'm going to welcome in a particular order we're going to go through tonight. Just want to welcome in for an opening statement, and I'm going to start that off with Dr. Rico Short.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well, and I appreciate you, Brett, for doing this again. And I really think that it's something that we need to talk about. I'm a board certified endodontist in Atlanta. I've been in my practice on my own now for 16 years, and I still experience racial discrimination. I don't want to say daily, but I feel like it's daily, and it's not necessarily because I'm in Atlanta. It's just because of the brown color skin I'm in, and also being an African American male, we are very, very much underrepresented in dentistry. And so what happens is a lot of my referrals that I get from dentists, they tend to have to prep them to say, hey, he's black, but he's good, or they have to carry around my the cover of Dentistry Today when I was only African-American male to ever make the cover in the history of 25 years, which is terrible. And say, oh yeah, he's qualified. And to the point where one of my referring dentists, she just got tired of just validating for me. And she was just like, you know what, it's just hard. And she chose to send her patients elsewhere because she just got tired of having to validate the fact that, I was African-American and and I can do a quality root canal. And also I actually lease space from an older Caucasian dentist, and there's like 4 or 5 offices within like maybe 15 yards of me, and none of them refer me patients. They'll send patients, 10, 15 miles away versus supporting me.
Rico,
just because.
Rico,
Yeah.
just gently with love. So we're going to come back to you. We're just going to do a quick opening statement. I'm going to be a policeman on this one. But
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Amazing.
So I didn't know if we were doing just brief because I had it down for like, I was going to go 3 minutes and I was going to stop.
You got 5 coming up, but so I'm just going to say,
okay.
So my hook is going to be with love. We're going to move on to the next panelist.
All right.
But,
okay.
Amazing
All right.
To have you, Rico. Amazing.
All right. My pleasure. Go ahead. Take it away.
Next up is Dr. Danielle Cascioli. Danielle, so, tell us just a little brief introduction and just, in essence, what has the last few months with what we've been discussing and going on, what has that been for you?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Brett, for having us all. It's really an honor to be a part of this group and to participate in this amazing discussion. For me, the last few months, I think similarly to what you said, Brett, it's felt like an increased level of an awareness for me, to start to kind of pay attention to the ways in which injustice shows up, especially racial injustice, in our lives. And I think in dentistry too, this is such an important discussion, and I'm so glad we're doing it. Because like Rico said, I think Black people are way underrepresented in dentistry. And that was one of the things that really came to my mind when this has really come to the forefront in the last few months. So I love that we're here doing this, and I think it's such an important discussion. So thank you, Brett.
Awesome. So great to have you, Danielle, again. And Danielle, Rico, and Christian and I, we participate in another session as well. And I can see more of them coming because this is so important. Tonight's about speaking our truth and hearing it from a lot of different faces. And with that, we're going to get a very, very nice face to join us, Dr. Christian Powell, who is driving, it looks like. Christian, do you have it in you for a 1 minute say hello and what the last few months has meant to you and what you've learned?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. And hi, Brett. Thank you so much for hosting this again and perpetuating this conversation, because like anything in life, it's a practice. It's a practice of awareness more than anything. And yeah, if I could summarize this past few months, it's been eye-opening, really eye-opening. I've realized to recognize just the things that I take for granted. Just being a white male, and not having to worry about a lot of things. And I think the bottom line is just remembering that we are all the same, and we it's hard to put into words, but when I've learned to get more curious.
With love, we'll continue the conversation, and that is, you're right. It was a perfect pause because it is so hard to put it into words. But that's what this tonight is all about, is to hear different words. And but you're right, being curious is definitely a beautiful way to say where we are. Next, we're going to move on to Dr. Jenny Vites. So Jenny, welcome, and tell us what the last few months has been like and meant to you.
Hey guys, so as an FYI, I'm half Chinese and half white, and before just Memorial Day weekend, a lot of what I've been noticing a lot is an increase in xenophobia, especially with a lot of anti-Asian sentiment with COVID. And then with the death of George Floyd, it hit with a lot of us when it comes to processing racism, a fever pitch. And it was this breaking point. But for me, what I noticed was it became a great opportunity to be able to talk and, more importantly, to listen to others. So instead of just creating a lot of my humorous content like I usually do on Instagram, I put that on the back burner, and I instead decided, why not go ahead and just start a discussion with people? And even though I did get a little bit of a setback with some who unfortunately were a little bit too belligerent, many more turned out to actually be willing to talk and listen and hear a whole lot of things that we may not feel comfortable with, but we can no longer afford to feel comfortable anymore.
That's perfectly said. I totally agree. And that's why I think this session, and I think even our promotions for it, probably made a lot of people uncomfortable. And so I really commend those who are here joining us and supporting us, because that's what it's going to take, is for people to step out of their comfort zone. So next we'd like to welcome Dr. Ashley Azadi. Ashley, welcome in and tell us about the last few months for you and what you've learned and it's meant to you.
Hi guys. So thank you, Brett. Thank you, Ali, for starting all of these wonderful discussions that are so important. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and so this is not a new topic for me. Been interested in it and learning about it since I was in college. This is certainly a unique and remarkable time for all of us in our lives. I'm excited to be talking about racial healing and inspired so much by the energy of the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that for me, it's important to step into that discomfort and let our society know that, the way that we've been functioning is deeply flawed. And without this discomfort, we can't have change. And I think that we'll see that if we stand together, that we all stand to gain from making these changes. So I'm here. I want to keep this conversation going, and I think we need to.
Beautiful, beautiful. So glad you're here. Next, we're going to move to Dr. Nate Yang. Nate, tell us about what it's all meant to you the last few months.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Brett, for setting this up, and Ali for inviting me a few weeks back on this. For me, the last few months, it's interesting because I'm a kid that grew up in California, and you hear about racism, and like Jenny alluded to, as an Asian American, you're gonna face certain prejudices and commentaries and whatnot that are not savory, and you either compartmentalize it and compress it, or you express it and go all out. And I think now we've reached that point in the last few months where compressing it and compartmentalizing it is probably just like a pressure cooker. It's going to explode. And so what I've learned also in the last few months also is that when you don't realize, you hear the word racism and prejudice, and it doesn't hit you until it happens to you. And as you guys I've shared with you and we'll share later on, even in California, supposedly where it's really diverse and it's a big city, and there's big cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, it's there, and it sucks. And conversations like this really need to shine light on stuff like this so that we can all grow from this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nate. We're going to move on to Dr. Saleh Mahmoud. Saleh, how has it been for you?
Hi, everyone. I'm also from Baltimore. Ashley and I are neighbors. So the past few months have been very eye-opening for me. I have invested a lot more time learning about racism in this country, a lot of which I was unaware of. And so I'm grateful for that. I've also I've also opened my eyes to racism that has happened in my home country of Pakistan, where my parents are from. So I kind of turned a blind eye to that. I had a blind spot to that. So witnessing what's been going on here has also helped me see some of the injustices that have been happening in my country and probably throughout the world. And so I think what we're doing is a positive step towards, I guess I should say it's a good example. And I'm hoping that by taking, even if this is a small step, by taking these steps forward, we can, you know, influence positive change, even with other cultures as well.
That's beautiful. Yes, I totally agree. Little small steps, and that's what I'm hoping we're going to do tonight. Next up is Fiona Mattressing, and I want to just acknowledge Fiona because in our mastermind sessions, her openness and sharing was so impactful and really inspired me a lot. And so, Fiona, I want to welcome you in. Oh, you're muted. On Zoom.
All right, there we go. Thank you so much, Brett. That really means a lot. And thank you so much to Ali. I know when he started it, I'm not sure if I was the first one that he talked to about it, but definitely I was in the beginning stage, and he really helped me to join into the discussion with a different mindset because, you know, from my point of view, it is something that is very upsetting. It's very, can get you angry, can get you sad, it can get you all kinds of emotions, which is what I've been experiencing in the past short while, that these things have really been coming to a fever pitch. And it really helped me to open up that discussion. So thank you, Ali. And just basically to touch on what I've been feeling. I mean, emotions can't describe because you're in a roller coaster constantly. And especially with us being influencers, we're on social media, we're looking at every aspect of this and seeing and hearing every aspect. And, you know, my emotions have been going everywhere, all over the board. And same as Jenny, I had to take a step back. I wasn't happy. I wasn't, you know, posting the fun, enlightened things that I wanted to, because I was just too emotionally involved in what was really going on. And I think that something like what we're doing tonight is really going to help with everybody to understand, to evolve, and to really grow from these discussions, because these are difficult discussions, and I've had many difficult discussions, and it's only going to make things better.
Awesome. So glad you're here. Okay, next we're going to move to Dr. Ali Bhatia. So Ali, you're the man. You started this whole movement. So we're here. We want to hear what you have to say. What have the last few months been like for you?
Well, I want to first start by saying thank you to you all, and you guys are really giving me way too much credit. It really was just a couple messages that I sent out, and I just saw like certain people that are my friends who were active on social media talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. And I thought it'd be just, you know, a great way to bring us together. Really giving me way too much credit, Brett. Really appreciate you bringing us all together and creating this webinar. There's a big move. And again, it's uncomfortable doing such things. And I guess what I'd like to talk about is, you know, I'd always been, you know, aware of racism, again, being a person of color. I'd also been aware of injustices towards, you know, Black people. You know, even we did our first topic on redlining. I'd already researched that before. And when this occurred, especially with George Floyd, I think it really was a devastating time. But the silver lining was that it was becoming more mainstream, more people were becoming more aware of it. And my goal really was to make sure that this isn't just a moment, but more of a movement. And I feel like the way through that was education. And I wanted to create a space where it wasn't about social signaling on Instagram or, you know, about a cancel culture where people can't ask questions, but really that open-minded communication where people can actually learn. And as an influencer, you can teach others as well, and hopefully perpetuate and actually create a lasting change.
And you've done that. You've created the space. We're doing the open conversation, and so the credit that you're getting is well deserved, my friend. So we're going to move last but not least, of course, Dr. Mino Patel. Can you tell us, you know, how's it been for you? And then we're going to move into our 5-minute sessions for each panelist.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Hi. I'm from North Carolina and Indian. Of course, I grew up in Florida, small town north of Tampa. And so for me, I think this whole Black Lives Matter movement is really important, because it's something that, you know, it's so easy to know. And just like Ali said, it's easy to know that it's happening in the background, this racism and these things, but because in our daily lives, it's not in front of us, we probably aren't really thinking about it. And I think we just kind of brush it under the rug and kind of keep moving on with your life. And whether it happens to you or it happens to a friend or it happens to somebody, you're not aware, maybe you're aware of it subconsciously, but you don't do anything about it. And I think this is amazing that, Brett, you guys have all come together and we're here openly talking about it and really wanting to make change. And I think if we continue this, these small steps that we're taking to move forward, it will bring change. And you're right about the education piece. I've learned so much through these past few, this past month, just looking at social media, just looking at social media and talking to people that it's happening to, and talking to people that actually want to make a difference rather than just sitting on the sidelines. So thank you for having me here.
Yes, so great to have you. Okay, so we're going to move into essentially the body of the program. So Ali, he had mentioned the redlining. So we had some formal topics that we would discuss as part of the mastermind. One of them was redlining. What I wanted to discuss tonight, and this is an open 5 minutes for you guys, but I posed a few questions to the panelists and brought up the term microaggressions. And microaggressions essentially defined as brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative, prejudicial slights and insults toward any group, particularly culturally marginalized groups. And quite honestly, I hadn't really heard the term before our mastermind session. And all I could take away from it personally was that there's nothing micro about these aggressions. These are hurtful things that happen. Now, they might be hard to notice if you're not involved, but they are hurtful and they are aggressions. And so that was one of the topics I wanted to just have everyone understand, that we formally discuss certain topics, and that one really was enlightening. So if you guys want to touch on that, feel free to. I think what really I want to pose is how can we better identify racism in dentistry? Because it's clear that it's happening, and it's clear that it's probably likely that some either choose not to notice or don't notice because they're either not involved. Like me personally, I've never experienced this to myself. Now, granted, I'm a white male, so that makes it, I probably wouldn't be subject to something like this very often. However, it's not impossible that I would be. So the clear point is that no one in this beautiful, healing, incredibly, community-based profession should be made to feel uncomfortable in the dental setting. And that's what we want to fix. So how can we identify racism, and what can we each do to make a positive change? And clearly just being here, sitting here, if you're attending and listening to us, or you're one of the panelists, all of us collectively are in this together tonight. And I'm just so proud to be a part of it. So that's in essence what it is. If you guys want to give some other spin to it, please do. But I am going to hold you to 5 minutes. And we're going to start off with my good friend, Dr. Rico Short.
All right, so I think I've already eaten up 3 of my 5 minutes already in my intro, but it's all good. I'm thankful that you guys are doing this, because there's so many different layers that I can really kind of talk about being an African American male, being underrepresented. Even in my dental society, you go to different dental society. I go to different dental society meetings, and I'm the only Black person there, and no one would even hardly talk to you. And they're like, okay, well, why don't we have more diversity? It's because you don't talk to me. Oh, we have someone here, but you just, don't even really acknowledge I'm even in the room, and that's hurtful. So it's like, I'm paying my dues like everybody else. I want to make it better. I want to move up the chain, so to speak, and never get opportunities. So, so that's very hurtful. So, and that doesn't make me look forward to going to the next meeting, and especially if I don't do the things that they do. I might be the only dentist that's not a golfer. I don't golf. So maybe if I drunk bourbon and played golf, it'd probably be better. But it wasn't, and I'm not those. I don't kind of fit in that category. So, I the George Floyd situation, and also to the Ahmaud Arbery situation with the gentleman that got gunned down in Savannah just for jogging in a Caucasian pretty much neighborhood. these things that has hit home to me, but being a dentist and also being an African-American male and also a father of two children, two female children. And my daughters, they're concerned that if I go jogging in my neighborhood, which is an all-white country club neighborhood, that I may not come home alive. And that's sad and that's unfortunate. And even to spin that back into dentistry, that other people don't even think about that. You think about, hey, I worked hard, I live in this neighborhood, I should be able to enjoy all the amenities that this neighborhood offers without thinking about those kind of things. And even especially being a African-American specialist, male specialist, is even more difficult because oftentimes most of the African-American friends of mine, dentist friends of mine, they want to really try to keep as much production in their office, and they don't really send out because they really depend on everything that they get. And so you don't really get a lot of support from the African-American dentists, even, and it's not, the numbers just aren't there either. I mean, we represent only like 3.6% of dentists. And also to the Caucasian males is it's difficult to even get them support because they're wondering if their patient going to, think that you are on the same level. And growing up, I've always been taught that, if you're going to compete in this world, if you're going to compete with the white person, you got to be twice as hard, twice as good, and twice as smart as they are. So going into each operatory, I have to be out thinking, how can I make my root canal looks twice as good as Brett? And that's damn hard to do that, but in my mind, I got to keep thinking about, okay, how can I at least compete to even be counted as equal? I'm not even saying better. I'm talking about just being equal, and having that challenge every day is difficult, and you kind of learn to maneuver. For me, I learn to maneuver around. I utilize my faith often because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm okay in a room of people that don't look like me. And I want to be able to be that squeaky wheel so that they can ask those questions and so that I can educate them on what Black Lives Matter really is and what we've been trying to do for years, but we never had a real voice at the table. So that's why I wanted to come on here with you guys. And I wanted to also feel like I'm a safe place to ask those tough questions, because some of my white colleagues, they want to ask the questions, but they're like, oh, I'm scared I'm going to offend you. Da, da, da. I'm like, look, you probably will offend some people. And the questions originally may not come out as smooth as you would like it, but that's a start versus being quiet about the issue. And so that's what I want to encourage everybody, is that if you have somebody that don't look like you or whatever, and you can kind of develop a safe place with them, ask the tough questions, because that's the only way you're going to know what we're dealing with. If you saw me from the outside looking in, I know I probably got 30 seconds, Brett. I know you're taking and you would say, oh, look at Dr. Short. He's made the cover of magazines. He's seeing all the celebrities. He lives in a nice home, driving a nice car. He's okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay with what's going on. I have never been okay. I don't care how many accolades, how much money is in my pocket, I'm the people I know, how many celebrities I work on, I still have to deal with being in this brown skin my whole life. So my time is up, Brett. So,
wow.
Thanks.
So powerful, Rico, and you're just such a beautiful speaker. And thank you for sharing that. And in 5 minutes, your message came across. It landed with me, certainly. So, okay, we're going to move back to Dr. Danielle Cascioli. Danielle, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Rico. I can really feel, just lots of hurt from your experience. And I think my perspective on this is, how can we come from a place of compassion and empathy where we're being more aware and taking into consideration everyone's experience in life, and that, these things are just, it's not fair, it's not right, and with awareness we can make a change. So when I think of microaggressions, what comes to mind for me is asking myself hard questions. So another perspective that I have on this whole thing is personal responsibility. You know, we're all responsible for ourselves, for our thoughts, for our actions, and behaviors in the world. So when I learned about, you know, microaggressions, and that is a word that myself I've learned in the last few months, I have to think, you know, is this something that I may have done? And really think, you know, through my experiences interacting with all kinds of people from all kinds of races, is this something that in subtle ways of learned conditioning that we pick up from our society and from our environment, is this something that I have perpetuated? And I think that's where it can be a great starting place for all of us, you know, like asking ourselves those tough questions. And if you do notice something, then don't be afraid to call it out in yourself and really look at it and unpack what that is. Where did that come from? And is this mine to carry? Like, can I move forward in a new way, in a better way that makes me more empathetic and compassionate to people of all experiences? And all that to say, you know, really we're all connected. And I think that's what Christian kind of meant to say when he said we're all the same. Obviously, we're not all the same. You know, we come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors, and that's the beauty of the world. But deep down, we have all come from the same source. So when we connect back into that part of our humanity, I think we can really move forward in a way that's so different than what our current society really promotes and validates, whether unconsciously or very overtly in some ways too. And that's all I have to say.
Always beautifully said, and you're right. And at the level of the soul, you know, we're all just wearing these costumes, you know, we're all just these souls, and we are all the same in that way. And so another magic of this that I'm noticing is the chat room here. So I want to encourage everyone, as dentists, we're also multitask oriented. I saw Rico having some beautiful conversations through chat. So as each speaker finishes, please feel free, if you're in the participant audience, just send messages. I've already read a few of them. I'm so touched just to have, you know, these expressions come out based upon these conversations. So Danielle, thank you so much. Christian, are you able to speak while driving? You know, I got to make sure you're okay, man. I got to make sure you're safe. You good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just parked up. Thank you. And first off, thank you, Danielle, for clarifying my wording. It's been one hell of a day. Okay, I'll be quick. Dr. Short, thank you so much for that share. That really gave me added perspective. I'm here more as a student, just to be curious and learn. And I'm reflecting back on how challenging it was to get into dental school, to get through dental school, and to be a dentist. And to add that insane layer on top of it for no reason at all is just... It's beyond me. So it really helps, like Danielle was saying, to take more responsibility. And it begins with these microaggressions, these things that might be easily passed off from time to time. And I think what really helps me take more responsibility and is differentiating empathy from sympathy. I think it took me a long time to really understand. I used to mistaken sympathy, just, you know, the thought of being in someone else's shoes versus, okay, what is that person feeling? What might they be feeling? And getting curious about that and going into that place, feeling that feeling to get a better understanding, to really empathize. And, you know, it could even be a particular situation comes to mind that I really just want to elaborate on. So in the office I work at, one day, one of the people made an off-putting joke about another staff member, and they said something a little bit derogatory towards their ethnicity in terms of how they were performing, and the person just said, oh, they must have had too much tequila last night. And, you know, right away it shot up a red flag. And I got curious though instead. And I said, you know, why would you say that? And he's like, oh, well, I'm just joking, you know, don't worry about it. And I started digging a little deeper and deeper. And I just said, no, like, what would it feel like for him to hear that? Should we just bring that up together? And, you know, at that point, it didn't take much more to realize that, you know, it wasn't a place. And I think the desire was just to fit in more, but it's so interesting how we have this tendency to isolate others when we try to fit in. And if we just dig deep to the core and realize that we all just want to fit in, I think we can all do it together by being curious and by understanding that we all have the same spectrum of feelings. We all have access to the same desires, and we all want to be loved. We all want to fit in, and we all can be if we acknowledge this and recognize that there is no separation ultimately. And there has been so much and so many layers and, you know, so many centuries of oppression that have to be, you know, constantly reinforced, I think, to be able to one day see things as equal. And so again, I really want to commend Ali for getting this conversation started. You know, you did more than just start a group chain, and you deserve the credit, and Brett, cannot thank you enough for bringing us all on here. Yeah, that's my take on it. Let's be curious and empathetic together.
It's perfect. It's like the perfect message, and that's exactly what I think we're all doing, and that's why we're all here. And there's just so much to learn, and there's no better way to learn than to listen to the experiences of others. And we have some pretty special others here as this group is together. So, okay, so we're going to move on to Dr. Jenny Vites. Jenny, take it away. Tell us, you know, just put it into your words.
Sure. So I don't think I mentioned earlier, but I'm half Chinese and half white. That's my my background. I happen to be multiracial. And Fiona probably can also say this too, that because she happens to be multiracial as well, but I kind of describe my, like what I've experienced as being a part of two worlds and yet somehow not being part of either one. And it's everything from, I look a lot more like my Caucasian father, and my sister, my older sister, looks more like my Chinese mother. And because we don't really look like a full mix, it ended up being where people will just take me for face value, but then they would normally either go one way or the other or something I'm not. And it started from even like one innocent day where I took my grandmother to an ophthalmologist appointment. I went with her and my mother, and we're in an elevator, and a Chinese woman came in with us in the elevator, and she instructed my mom to tell the helper, me, to push the button for the 3rd floor. And my mom looked at her and said, "That's my daughter." And then she tries to politely, in her way, try to apologize by saying, "Oh, she's so beautiful." And my mom says, "You have 10 seconds to get out of the elevator." Sadly, those are similar experiences to what I get even in the profession as well. It could be small microaggressions from, "Oh, well, what country are you from originally?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm from Pennsylvania." "Where are you from originally?" And then in order to cut, to shut down the conversation, but put my spin, a sense of humor, and say, "Okay, you got me. I'm originally from New Jersey. It is a country sometimes, but you know what? It is part of the United States." But it does suck, though, that I have to let patients know that the last name Vitez is Hungarian. And as much as I love many of my patients who are Hispanic, they initially think at first, "Well, why can't you speak Spanish?" And I'll say, "I'll try as much as I can, pero soy gringa." I'm not. And it's a tough thing when you're given these spur of the moment words or throwaway quips, and you think at first, what do I say? And the tough thing, and that's why I very much sympathize with Rico, because it's a difficult thing to have to say something, and at the same time, it's your reputation that's at stake, your ability to either see the patient or to maintain a rapport with your fellow colleagues, whether, like in Dr. Rico Schwartz's case, GPs were referring to him, and that's his bread and butter. And for me, it's a GP, so for me, it's a matter of getting along with my associates, even if maybe with my first job, it was with an Asian boss who gave favoritism to his fellow colleagues and employees who were full-blood Asian. It's a tough world that we live in, where unfortunately we look at what is superficial, but also it's our obligation and duty as professionals to see that for what it is and to call it out, but to call it out in a certain way where you have to have some degree of professionalism and gentility. I was imparted these wise words recently by an Instagram influencer. His name's Louie, and his account is Keep It Juicy. He loves to talk about making juices, fruits, and really healthy snacks. And he saw some of my posts on Blackout Tuesday, and then he said, when I mentioned about how some people just want to speak their own mind, but they say it a little bit too belligerently, he said, you can't come to the table with a sledgehammer. And that's what I hope I can convey in this panel and to those who are around me when we establish a dialogue. I know we all have our own origins, our own backgrounds, our own experiences. But if we are to hope to establish a dialogue and to solve these problems within our industry, we have to disarm ourselves. We can't start by calling out names. We can't accuse, especially because if, say, like it happened to me where someone called me privileged, and I'm like, but you don't know who I am. And if you're going to mark me already with a label without knowing who I am, then you've established that I'm something that is not like, that I'm a thing instead of a person. I hope with more of these discussions, with more that we can do with talking about race, that we can start to put down that sledgehammer and talk.
That's beautiful. And I agree. And I think, like, in some ways, approaching it as healing, which we're all so accustomed to doing for so many, that we approach it as healing. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, like not to come with a sledgehammer, but to come with the intention of healing. And we can all contribute to that. And we all know how to do that. And as dentists, we are such leaders in our communities, in our families, in our workspace, that, you know, we are the perfect leaders to start this conversation. So this can go as far as until this is no longer an issue to discuss. So thank you so much, Jenny. Beautiful. We're going to move into Dr. Ashley Azadi.
Thanks, Jenny. I feel like I can relate to so many of you, as I'm sure that a lot of the attendees can as well. It's kind of funny, I didn't know what microaggressions was until very recently. And it's striking when you realize how many times in your life you've actually experienced, witnessed, or been a part of a microaggression. And I just loved Danielle's open and honesty about that, because I think really we have to be honest with ourselves and reflect on the history, on our history. You know, I am a Persian American, and I grew up in a 99.9% white area, and had to deal with a lot of really weird things. You know, are you Black or are you white? You know, very weird questions. And I'll never forget, in high school, my teacher looked at me and said, you know, I always thought you'd be in AP Math because of your Persian background, but I never thought that you would be in AP English. And these are the things, you know, the emotions that we need to honor on the inside, when we, you know, at the same moment, it felt very icky, but at the same time, I was like, oh, she's giving me a compliment. And, you know, it took 20 years to realize that that's a huge insult and that's racist. And that's microaggression, and that's not okay. And I think what's important to me is to teach my children about this and to give them a voice so they can stick up for themselves and they can stick up for their friends, and that they can recognize these things, that they can empathize, and really support the people that they're growing with. You know, one thing that is really, really important to me, and growing up in Baltimore, and, you know, I've been working since I was 16, so I've kind of had all different kinds of jobs, which I love. And to me, you know, there's no secret to oral health. You know, we know that you need a healthy diet and you need good hygiene. And it seems simple, but too often when there's racial inequalities, there's just lack of access to, you know, oral health care, oral hygiene instructions, to good diet. A lot of times with these racial inequalities, there's children that don't have access. You know, they live in areas where there's not grocery stores. You know, there's not fresh produce brought to the table every day. And it just really breaks my heart because I did work in a liquor store that was / a sandwich shop, and I really liked it. But I saw a lot of this in there. And so these people come in and they spend their money. It's more expensive, first of all, because, you know, they're shopping from local community convenience stores, and there's no fruit and veggies in there. And so I think that's huge to realize that cycle continues. And so people don't realize that they need to change their habits, they need to change their oral health care routines. And I think this is something that we need to really recognize and talk about. And low-income neighborhoods and communities of color have significantly less access to healthcare and healthy foods. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that, you know, we have to help, we have to provide, we have to make it possible, we have to give the resources. I want to talk about, you know, what we can do, you know, to teach and make a difference. And I think that first and foremost, we need to acknowledge that health disparities exist. Sadly, in our community, people don't realize this, you know, and they're just not taught it, you know, they don't see it every day in their lives. You know, they live in these nice neighborhoods, they go to the private schools, they don't have these conversations with their children. Not saying any of that is bad, but we need to have these conversations, we need to open their eyes. And we need to find a way. We need to recognize that, you know, all of us are students, and that we need to find leaders and thought-provoking teachers that will lead us and guide us to constantly be aware, so that we can pass this learning on to the future, not only to the future generations, but, you know, to our brothers and sisters right now. And I think part of it is just keeping this conversation going. And, you know, we can't stay silent. I think that's just been a huge eye-opener for me in this past couple months, is learning that, you know, we can't stay silent. We need to say something, and we have to use our voice for change. And we can't stop until we feel that change. And I just want to encourage everyone to keep the conversation going and to keep thinking about ways that they can learn and that they can educate. So that's my thought.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ashley. And I totally agree. And I think, you know, something Christian and I have been talking a lot about is, you know, how important nutrition is to basically everything about us, including our mental health. And so these disparities are a major concern. And so we're on the right track. Let's put it that way. That feels really good for me in my heart right this moment. So thank you so much. We're going to move on to Dr. Nate Yang. Nate.
Hi, everyone. So, you know, I was thinking on the way home, and you know, what am I going to talk about in my 5 minutes? So, you know, Dr. Short, Rico brought up something that resonates with me, is that in our dental community, amongst professionals, colleagues, there's this hope, whether it's like the younger dentist, middle-aged dentist, or older dentist, there's a baseline of emotional intelligence that I just always assumed was there. Maybe that's a little naive. And I remember, 4 years ago when, the quarterback for the 49ers, Colin Kaepernick, kneeled in protest for all the things that just happened a couple months ago. And I remember vividly having this discussion with other dentists. And I graduated in 2006 in my group. And, there were a lot of comments that, you can classify it as misinformed. Is it racist? Is it a microaggression? And the discussion, someone made a point, I'm not gonna say his name, he's a dentist, and he says, there's no such thing as racism. No one's racist against Colin Kaepernick. Come on. I mean, we had a black president. Racism, how is there racism, right? And it's so funny. I was thinking about talking about this, and it was actually spoken on the you talk about, you drive in and you hear your favorite, you're thinking about your favorite song, and all of a sudden your favorite song shows up, right? It was kind of that. I was driving home thinking about that, and they actually spoke about it on sports radio. That's my drive home, sports radio. It keeps me. And what everyone said, I think we're all grown adults here, and we can all basically, I think we all have a good understanding of what racism is and prejudice, and and it just makes me realize that whether it's 4 years ago with Colin Kaepernick, or in 1992 with Rodney King, or George Floyd, or you name it, it just seems to be this vicious cycle, right? This vicious circle. And just a few months ago, the ADA put out a thing that they brought up certain minority groups, and they completely forgot about the most important minority group. I don't want to go in that direction, right? So, or maybe I should go in that direction, because we should talk about it, right? And so I think when you talk about how I feel the last 3 months, it's not just the last 3 months. It's what I've spoken to about people. I don't care where you stand on the fence. Colin Kaepernick wasn't disrespecting the flag. He took a kneel because he saw something that was happening in America that should not be happening in America. I've told this group, and I'll tell everybody that's attending, I worked in a clinic where Oscar Grant got shot at that BART station, right? How does that happen? It's like in dentistry, right? Oh, I put the wrong burr in, or, we all make mistakes, right? How is it that you forgot which hand was on the stun gun and which hand was on the real gun, right? So, I guess, when you think about it, dentistry is a microcosm of real life, right? We all have our prejudices. Some are funny, like I hate certain specialties. Like I don't want to deal with children. Even though I have children, I don't want to deal with children, right? So, and I love dental photography. Everyone thinks I'm insane. All right, well, that's all right. I'm in the minority. No biggie, right? But I think where within even dentistry, we have certain, preferences, if you will. Now you spread that out to real life, like beyond dentistry. You talk about, why did your kid go to that school? Oh, they're super smart. Or why did you eat that? Or why did you do this? And then that turns into bigger things. And then now you start talking about race. And so I think my biggest takeaway from speaking with everyone in the group, and speaking with other dentists and my non-dental friends, is that for us to heal, like for Rico to figure out why a tooth is got a problem, what's he going to do versus what a periodontist is going to do versus what we got to diagnose the problem. And I think we all know what the problem is, right? So before we can all heal, before Rico can fix a tooth and let it heal, before I can fix a tooth, before Jenny fixes a tooth, before Danielle fixes a tooth, before Ali shows the whole world how to fix teeth with his platform, what we got to figure out why this keeps happening, right? Because I'm 45 years old, and I can tell you right now, things have not gotten better since Rodney King. Yeah. They haven't. For anyone that says it's gotten better, it's gotten worse. And to Ashley's point, we got to talk to each other and help each other out and keep this dialogue honest and bullshit free. Excuse my French. And then
Nate, with love, we're gonna move on, but you couldn't have ended it on a better statement. So very well done. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Dr. Saleh Mahmoud. Welcome in, and just anxious to hear your perspective as well.
I'm just gonna follow the format that you gave us, Dr. Gilbert. In regards to microaggressions, and I brought this up with the group a few weeks ago. I remember experiencing aggressions, like maybe macroaggressions. I don't know what the word is, just aggressions growing up, like comments such as, go back to your country, get down on your hands and knees and pray, you're ugly, what are you eating, those sorts of things. And so when somebody may have passed off a microaggressive comment, I wouldn't have necessarily noticed it. The alarm bells wouldn't go off. But as Ashley said, I kind of noticed or remembered, oh yeah, like some of the things that were said to me, they were a little aggressive. But the way I've kind of looked at it historically is that I'm not going to give those people power over how I feel. That's their issue. I like the way I look and I'm fine with it. If you don't like it, whatever. But now the way that I'm looking at it is that I think perhaps there are some folks that maybe aren't realizing what they're saying or they're doing. I mean, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I don't think shaming is the answer. I think for those that want to improve, awareness is key. So having discussions like this, explaining that the question, well, where are you from, can sometimes be a little off-putting, especially because we, people of color like myself don't really know how to answer that. So that's one thing. And then as far as how can racism be identified in dentistry, if you're running a clinic, if you just pay attention to your body language when somebody is coming in to your operatory and they look different to you, like what are you feeling inside? And don't be ashamed of it, just be aware of it and then fix it. It's just that easy. Don't judge yourself. Because I've got to tell you, growing up in a Pakistani Muslim family and visiting Pakistan a lot, like there was a lot of racism and bias against Christians and Indian Hindus. And so it was okay for them to say those sort of things over there in Pakistan. But then when we would come over here, I would hear the same comments. And I just thought it was okay. I remember going to this department store with my mom, and bless her heart, I mean, I think she's grown so much, but there was this couple that came up to us and they asked us, are you from India? And she's like, no, they're our enemy. We're from Pakistan. And I'm just like, Mom, like, no, like, don't say that. And I was in middle school, so I even understood it. And now she's like, now she gets it. She's not like that anymore. But yeah, so this whole thing has been very eye-opening, and it sucks that it started off, with it didn't just start off with George Floyd, but I think this whole movement of trying to improve did start from that. So I'm in a way grateful for it, because I think it's not only opened my eyes, but I've seen a lot of people grow and improve and wanting to make things better.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And to your point also, you know, I was thinking about the same question. It's like, as dentists in the office, I think it's really important that we welcome a safe space where if someone is the victim of a microaggression, or just, let's just call it an aggression, that they know that they could come and express it. You know, I think maybe the worst part of a microaggression is the feeling that someone has to just swallow it and just keep going because they don't want to upset anyone. They're worried about their job. They don't want to get someone in trouble. And so for me personally, like, that's something I'm going to take in from all this, is to always create a space where, come tell me if anything, if you don't feel comfortable in any way, be sure that you know you have a safe space to express it, because then I can work on a strategy to fix it, whatever that looks like. So well done. So thank you so much, Saleha. We're going to move on to Fiona. So Fiona, you know, please share with us. We're so grateful to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brett. I think, I mean, we're talking about microaggressions tonight, and I did a post this past month about it on the verbal. I want to touch on the nonverbal, which is, I think, even harder to identify and to really speak up against, because it's almost like, did this happen? Am I seeing into this? Am I not? I'll tell a story that I experienced. And I think the hardest part about microaggressions is that also it has you thinking, well, what am I doing in this situation wrong? Or, you know, am I reading this wrong when something's happening to you? So it's a very weird situation to be behind it. But, you know, when I finished, first of all, I'm a dental hygienist, different from the pack here, but, you know, we're all in the same profession, all in the same field, and all kind of going through the same paths and such. So when I finished hygiene, I decided to stay in the city that I had gone to school in. I'm originally from Toronto. I'm from Canada, if anybody doesn't know. And I did basically everything that I could to find a job. I you know, applied for every position that I saw online. I walked to so many different offices, handing out resumes, trying to get my name and information out there. And then, of course, I bothered just about every friend I knew that could talk to maybe their dentist or hygienist when they went into the office to say, you know, are you hiring? I was desperate. I wanted to get in there. So I guess just to recap on each one and to say how what happened, and this is over a year span, for all the offices that I applied to online, I got calls. They all went very well. I was offered to come into the office for an interview, and once I went into the office, I either got shocked looks or didn't get any other contacts beyond that. For the offices that I went to apply, got no interviews, and actually maybe 6 years later, I had actually revisited the city with a colleague of mine. At the time, I was working for a dental pharmaceutical company, and we were visiting a couple of different offices. And as we drove around the city, I pointed out at least 40 offices to her and said, you know, I dropped off a resume here, there, and as I kept listing them off, I kind of started to tear up a bit, because I realized how hard I worked, and I'd gotten nothing to satisfy the fruits of my labor. And the last one was getting friends to put the word out for me with their own offices, dental offices. And, you know, I did get one working interview out of it, did the working interview for the day, nothing really came of that. And then the second example that I have is actually I don't know, I guess nail in the coffin to say that, you know, something's going on here, something's wrong here to start my career for the past year. I had a friend who, you know, suggested me to their dental office. They, you know, didn't want to call me. They gave them my resume, basically. They didn't want to call me. I had some friends who called me and said, you know, one of the hygienists in the office hurt themselves and we need somebody for coverage. It just so happens that that was actually the exact same office that I had been suggested for. When I went into the office, the dentist was actually on vacation, so I wasn't interacting with this dentist. But the hygienists that were there was about 3 that were working. 2 were actually former classmates of mine who were working in the office, and that's how I got my way into cover. So I did my work. After like 3 days of coverage, the dentist came back and we had a discussion, and I told her what I was expecting for pay, and she refused. She refused that pay and suggested half that, and said that I did not have the experience or knowledge to be able to be paid at that amount. After that, I actually contacted my classmates who were working in the same office and checked in with them as to how much they were being paid, and they were being paid what I'd asked initially for pay. So I mean, there's at that point, it really, when I think back on my year of trying to get a position in that city, it really hurts, because knowing that, you know, somebody who, as myself, I'm a very high achiever. I try my hardest at everything that I do, and to know that the color of my skin could have been the potential aspect as to why I had no foot in the door anywhere, you know? So looking at the dental forum, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects. There's going to be people's mindsets. That one's a little bit harder to change. All we can do is stand up and discuss with them about what our beliefs are or where they're going wrong. Something else that I always notice personally is signage. You know, advertising signage that you have in the office. It hurts when I go through all these offices and I don't see any kind of variation in racial imaging when you look at an office. All of their visual ads are of one, you know, racial type. So it kind of sets a tone right there already. And then also ads on TV, what have you. A lot of times you're not seeing a variation of racial ethnicities. So maybe bringing up questions in the office, you know, why don't we have, you know, a variation of racial visual ads in our office? Why is it one racial ethnicity being shown here? And, you know, the dentists are not of that ethnicity. Almost none of the workers in the office are of that ethnicity. So why did you choose that particular race to validate as, you know, come to the go-to patients that should be in that office? It's kind of telling almost. So, I mean, something that we can do in the dental sphere is questions. I think asking questions as to what's going on and why those things are happening. And then having those uncomfortable conversations. I very often myself, I always try to ask those uncomfortable conversations, whether it be, you know, why didn't I get this position? You know, what held you back from giving me this position? It's very interesting to see the comments that I get, to be honest. Now, because I've set up a name for myself and what have you, a lot of the things that I do are through friends, or, you know, people come to me and ask me, are you available? Can you work for my office? So, you know, things have changed in that regard. But if I were to go to an office that I didn't know, I still have a feeling of, are they going to see me for my skills, or are they going to see me for, you know, my visual aspect that's in front of them? So it's, you know, the conversations like these, webinars like these, they're all going to help in that conversation. The conversation needs to be had, but then there also needs to be some kind of work beyond that. It doesn't mean you need to go to a protest. That might not be something that you're comfortable with. Maybe it's simply asking questions. Maybe it's simply having a discussion. I can't tell you how many open discussions I've had with people around me. They're very difficult. It's hard for me to understand how some of the people that I've had in my life don't know simple things that I thought that they knew. Or, you know, the relationship that we had built was surrounded around one understanding, but then they're asking me something that doesn't follow with that understanding of who I thought they were as a person, or the understanding that they had as a person. So, I mean, on the outside aspect for other people, you want to have those conversations and answering, but then for yourselves as well too. From my aspect, I'm also going to try to slow down, think, and to really be open to answering difficult questions when they're being asked of me, because I feel that that's really what's going to get the narrative changed.
Wow. Thank you so much, Fiona. I mean, it's just, you know, listening to you and Rico and, you know, everyone, this is why we have to do this, because to feel the feels of what you've gone through and to see, you know, how incredible you are and how ready you are to work. And it's heartbreaking. It's literally heartbreaking. And I can only imagine how that must feel internally after putting in all that great work and being so ready. So, but kudos to you. Look at you, you know, you've got a name now, you're working hard, you're teaching. You had a great post today. I really enjoyed that. So awesome. So we're going to move next to the main man, Dr. Ali Bhatia. Ali, shed some light on everything for us from your perspective.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I'm realizing more and more, you know, I've been looking at the educational aspect, watching YouTube videos online, but some of the stories that have impacted me the most are from like hearing from Fiona or my fellow colleagues or people that, you know, we interact with. Then that person isn't as distant from you. Then you realize, you know, how close this is to home. This is not like an outsider problem. Oh, this only happens. I'm from Canada. This only happens in America. It really brings things home. Even, you know, I watched that first webinar with Brett and Rico, and you and Rico, I'd never met you, but just hearing your story and hearing about, you know, what you'd gone through as a dentist, really brought it home. And, you know, as much as we are aware of it, it can actually, you know, bring that empathy out. So that's something new that I learned as well, that I think is very powerful. So I think this forum is very powerful, especially having it on a public stage. As we were doing the mastermind, it was just a group of us, and I see the power of this, of bringing it to everyone here. So I think there's so many things, you know, we could discuss, but we were talking about microaggressions, and, you know, I've definitely experienced those in our group. I've talked to you guys all about the microaggressions that I've experienced. I think I've probably been on both sides. I've probably, you know, even been on the other side of things where I'm, you know, displaying a microaggression that I did not mean to. And I know, even thinking back to the times where I was younger and perhaps was a victim to a microaggression, I know that person did not mean any harm. But what a microaggression really is a symbol of implicit bias, right? So it's just that bias that people are not aware of, that they may have, that might be perpetuated by society. And again, it may not be any fault of their own. So it's very important to not, again, attack them or get, you know, just in a way better to educate them, because it's not that they are trying to particularly, well, not, I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of times people aren't trying to be offensive. They just don't know any better. And I think with going with these implicit biases, that goes into systemic racism. And that is something that, you know, I'm, you know, really one of the focuses that I was always trying to bring back our sessions to, that we had our weekly sessions, is a systemic racism that is pervasive in society. That, you know, while, let's say, for all these cops, you know, that have done this wrongdoing, you know, they go to jail, they have the sentences, but that's not going to really take care of the societal problem. Right? Part of the societal problem is, of course, education. So people being aware that there is racism, and also changing the system. So how do we create the lasting change? I think that goes into your next question of how can racism be identified in dentistry? Part of it is seeing, you know, what implicit biases you have, which are creating systemic racism. For example, if you're not hiring someone of color, right? Even myself, if I'm not hiring someone because of their color, because of their sex, because of their age. So that's very important to know. And there's actually a test which, you know, I came across when I was reading up today's an implicit bias test, which I believe is by Harvard. So you can kind of take a look and see what your own implicit biases are. Other than that, understanding that there are certain groups that, you know, just over the generations have, you know, experienced racism and therefore don't have the same opportunities that we have had. So again, essentially, how do we make lasting change? It may be through voting, it may be through educating ourselves and making sure that we're not, again, proponents or as in pushing racism, or, you know, actually instead healing and fostering more growth. So I think in terms of positive change, this is a really great step forward. And we also have to have discussions about how we continue this conversation and potentially how we make systemic changes in our society. And education's part of it. Another part of it may be voting, bringing in the right people who are actually going to change the system. That's all I have to add there.
Wow, thank you so much, Ali, and just so beautifully. But I just am so taken by just, you know, not only the messages, but how beautifully delivered all these messages are, and you know, that's just sitting here looking at just such an incredible group of leaders, and just feel totally honored. So we're gonna move to Dr. Mino Patel, and welcome back in, and really anxious to hear your perspective as well.
Hi, yes, thank you. You know, it's been so eye-opening and interesting just listening to everybody that's been before me. Rico, your stories are amazing. And Ali, I can really identify, and, you know, Saleha, yeah, you know, I'm an Indian American. I grew up in this country. I grew up in Florida in a small town. My parents, my family was the only Indian family in the town that I grew up in. And my dad was in medicine, and so he was a chief technologist in nuclear medicine at the hospital and worked in cardiology. And my mom owned a business. She was a business owner, and she was the only female Indian business owner in that town. I lived in a community of 100% white people. We lived right outside of the country club. And I can think back, and I will go back and say, you know, microaggression is a new term to me. Like many of you, it's a new term to me. And did I really, if I look back in my childhood, did I ever really feel that? I don't think I felt it until you start thinking about it. And when you start thinking about it, you start to say, wait a minute, like maybe, you know, early on, I had a memory just come up and say, hey, you know what, when we were starting elementary school, my brother and I went to, we went to a private school to begin with. And then as soon as my younger brother was of age to go to elementary with me, so my parents switched me and we went to public school. And the school decided, because we were of color or different or whatever you say, they were going to put us in ESOL classes, which is English as a second language class. And so we went, and we were going, and finally my parents were like, wait a minute, like these kids are born and brought up in this country. It's not a second language. And so do you really think that that's a microaggression, or is it not? Or was it an accident, or was it not? Or, you know, friends, as you're growing up, they ask, oh, do you speak English? And, you know, like, is that like, you know, and so it's really interesting. Wrapping that into dentistry, it's, to me, I haven't felt it much, but in a way, it's, I think, because it's pushed off. I don't really allow myself to think about it, because I'm really trying to, I think, fit in. You know, we're just trying to fit in. And I think it's more so with exactly what Fiona is saying. I mean, you can tell she worked so hard, and it's not because of that she's not smart enough, or she's not, you know, working hard, or she's not doing any of that. It's because maybe people really are underlyingly not allowing themselves to take people as people. And in dentistry, I think underlyingly we prejudge, and, you know, maybe I'm somebody that may be doing that too, and I maybe have done that in the past, or maybe other people are doing that to us. You know, it's really interesting to see, and it's, you know, whether you say it's wrong or not, but it's interesting to see a completely all the same type of person in each person in that staff or in that team, you know, and not having that diversity in the team. It's really interesting. It's something to note. And whether you want to say something about it or not, it might be something to note. And whether that's something we're talking about or not, I think we're not talking about it. But I think as we do meetings like this, as we are comfortable, and I don't know that it's actually comfortable talking about it. You know, it's not comfortable, but I think the more we talk about it, the more we bring it up, the more we have conversations like this, it's going to make a difference. And I think I'm really, really blown away at a lot of the stories that I've heard today. And I really appreciate a lot of the openness of people that have come forth. You guys, like this, I really appreciate putting this together. And I really appreciate being a part of this, because I think this is the start of something really big that a lot of people are going to benefit from it. Just watching some of the comments too, it's something that's really interesting. So I really appreciate it. And I think it's made a big difference for me. And I think the biggest thing is realization, sitting back and thinking about it, and how can we all actually make a change.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. And just quickly, I'll add in my experience, because so although you can't see it on my face or my skin, or maybe even by my name, but I'm Jewish, and different than many of you who grew up really sort of different than those around you. I grew up in a community that was basically all Jewish in Baltimore. I went to high school with 98% were Jewish. So I grew up in sort of this safe environment. Now, that's not to say that from the perspective of outside in the world, and certainly historically, you know, what my people have endured. And I carry that in my genes. And I, you know, in a way, I think about how I probably consciously avoid having an aggression against me by maybe not talking about it that much, you know, maybe not publicly, you know, making it so obvious. My name doesn't necessarily point to it, but I can relate in a sense to the fact that being different in some way, being a minority, you know, it's something that I guess really had the ability to have a sort of a cloak because my skin is white, but I can empathize in such a way because inside I almost feel, you know, that, you know, maybe I'm not being authentic enough about it because I'm hiding, you know, I don't know. All I know is that listening to all of your stories brings it out for me. And fortunately, like I said before, I haven't really had experiences where I felt aggression against me for that. But I certainly carry a ton of empathy and an understanding that we all are different in certain ways. But when it's when you walk into a job interview, when you walk into every single day of your life and people are acting upon it. And I really like, Fiona, your comment about when I even wrote these questions about microaggression when we discussed it in the mastermind. To me, I was thinking more in terms of verbal. I wasn't thinking in terms of the nuance of nonverbal and how much sometimes that's even more powerful, right? Because you can choose not to speak, but your reaction sometimes and the energy of that reaction can be way more hurtful. And so I took that away from tonight as well. So as far as positivity and, you know, like I said, I want to create a safe space in any dental sphere that I'm in for people to express anything that makes them uncomfortable. And I think that exactly what we're doing now, educating, coming together, and look at our faces, look at our skin colors, look at our environments. This is so beautiful. This feels so amazing. And we just have to show people, get into a group that looks totally different from you. You're going to have a great time. You're going to learn. You're going to be enriched. And it's going to mean so much in your life. So I want to move into, we have, you know, pretty much kept on time. There were a couple I just couldn't stand to put the axe down. But I want to come through with just a closing statement. Just, you know, how do you leave us tonight? And I'm going to start it back off with Dr. Rico Short.
Wow, we just unpacked so much. We've solved the world problems in an hour and a half. That's great, you know, so maybe we all need to run for some kind of political office. Yeah, I just thank you guys for continuing to do this. And as you guys were talking, it was bringing up other things about me. And I, you know, one thing that was, and I kind of put it in the private chat, is like, man, I thought when they say color, that just mean all black people. It's like colored. I'm like, what? Like other than black people, people consider themselves colored, like, or brown skin. You know, and so that was like, you know, it made me feel more inclusive of a bigger whole. And that was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not alone on this island by myself. And then the other part, and then I'm gonna move on, is I don't know if I shared this with you, Brett. I found my biological father like 3 years ago and found out he was Indian. So here it is. I've been raised in a black environment, black eyed peas, fried chicken, all the little kind of things. And now I got to figure out how to eat curry and, you know, all these other kind of wonderful dishes. And my dad grew up Hindu. I'm learning about all that. So it's been crazy, you know. So it's like, man, you know, and when I took the ancestry DNA test, when it said 52% South Indian, I'm like, what? And I'm looking at the map. I'm like, South India, that's a long way away from Atlanta, Georgia. So anyway, and you learn, and now that I realize that, I look at myself like, man, you know, you look different. And I look at my kids, and my kids, they look different, but I never saw myself being anything other than 100% black. And so this is a whole new experience for me that I'm learning, you know. So anyway, thank you guys for sharing tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Rico. And you made some new friends that I bet can hook you up with some tips on good food, right? So Danielle, Dr. Danielle Cascioli, close us out.
Thank you, Rico. I just love your perspective, and I love hearing each and every one of your perspectives tonight. I think that is the beauty of what this whole thing is about. You know, opening ourselves up to a new level of awareness, and I think we did that. And from there, you know, the more we continue to have these conversations and be open to different perspectives, be open to questioning ourselves, be open to questioning others, that's how we're gonna make progress.
And Christian?
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, so many beautiful points. Thank you all for sharing and being open. I want to just touch on celebrating our differences and celebrating everyone else's differences. One of my favorite questions to ask patients, and even just people, you know, in Ubers or in trains, whatever, when conversation comes up, and I can tell someone's a little uncomfortable about their ethnicity, I'll ask, like, what's your favorite part about your culture? And it kind of throws them off, and they're like, why is that person, what's this guy want? And I love learning, and 90% of the time they'll talk about food, and I love food. So it's a great talking point and connection point. So yeah, I just want to touch on that, and just, again, the power of curiosity. And, you know, I really love Fiona that, like, really helped me empathize to 40 different resumes, 40 plus resumes, and all rejections. And, like, I'm thinking from a standpoint of an employer, like, who would you want to hire? The person that perseveres, like, goes to 40 rejections and still shows up, or just another person that looks like you, you know? So it really helped him give me perspective too. So thank you all.
Beautiful. And Jenny?
I think one thing I remember, Fiona and I were kind of talking briefly behind the scenes in terms of what to discuss with this panel. And one of the things that I did mention to her, and I did mention to others too, for those of us who have had unfortunate experiences, we have an opportunity in order to be able to make an effect out of it. We could choose to be angry, we could choose to let those bad things define us, or we can overcome and make an opportunity out of it. And I'm glad, for instance, like Rico had shared and confided that that he had bad experiences as a child, but he used that as an opportunity to be able to give and do good for others, so that way others don't have to suffer as well. And Fiona uses the opportunity to be an educator, to be able to help others. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. We can transform something that was negative of us and turn into something good for not just ourselves, but for everybody. Because after all, if we're healthcare professionals, we're meant to do good to others.
Beautiful. And Ashley?
Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit of a different approach. I one of the things that was really shocking to me that I learned in my research over the past several months was, so I did a lot of research, obviously, like everyone else. And when I present things on Instagram or, I presented things on TikTok, I really wanted to make sure that things were factual. And one of the most shocking things to me that kind of broke my heart was that this one statistic that children ages 3 to 9, minority children, Black children, Hispanic children, and Native American children are 3 times more likely to have caries, and because of their oral condition, they're 4 times more likely to miss school. And education is their future. So I wanted to make a call to action because if I put this out there, then it's also putting pressure on me too. And I want us to hold each other accountable. So you guys, let's do something about this. So we have a skill that most people don't and most people need. And I think we need to give that skill. And I realize that we're all busy and, we don't have time and, but, we can give in our own ways. Maybe we do have time to give, and you can open your practice on a Saturday and reach out to local communities. I want to brainstorm on this. I want this to be a conversation that we have. And I've participated in different things, so I have some ideas, but there's a lot of challenges when you want to do things like this. But anyways, I don't know. I want us to do something, dental service days, donating time, donating money, supporting organizations, choosing 1 case a month. We're all on Instagram. We can put this out there and get people to nominate people. And we can maybe choose 1 case a month where we just really just help someone go from 0 to 100 with their smile, because we know the power of a confident smile takes people places. And so I feel like this is not a one-time effort. This has to be a collective and ongoing effort. And we really need to help eradicate these racial inequalities. And this is really hard work, but together we can do it. So I just really hope that we get out there and we help people and we find these children and we educate them. And, if you go out to school and you teach children oral hygiene, like they want to learn, they want to know, they love knowing that apples will help not only their gums, but it's good for their gut biome, so I think that this is part of our job as teachers and leaders in the community. And I'd love for us to inspire each other and open these conversations so that we can continue to make changes.
I love the idea of a service project for this group. I think that's that fits. That feels really light and expansive to me. So well done, Ashley. Love a call to action and accountability of this community. So Saleha, do you want to give us your closing statement?
Sorry. I said, am I skipping Nate? But are we skipping Nate? But it's okay. You can go after him.
I apologize. I always do that to someone. Nate, I apologize. I checked your name off and then I said Saleha, but Nate, so Saleha, we'll come right back to you. Nate, buddy, close us out. The dude DDS.
Yeah. I think coming away from this, I want to make sure we all leave with what you said, Brett, earlier about it, the We Are the World feeling. Whether it's the We Are the World from 1984, from 2000 something. I think I shared with the group earlier, and I think one thing I've come away in sharing with everyone is that I help run a community clinic, and we had a Black Lives Matter movement between the hygienists, the dentists, and the nurses a while back. And a few weeks later, someone wrote on the sidewalk that white power forever. And it made me realize that, like I said earlier, in California, you would think, oh, everyone's pretty nice and diverse. And I think one thing I came away from this experience of this happening is with, like Jenny said, if you come in with a hammer every single time, you're not going to really cultivate or grow or heal or do anything. So I've come to learn that the attitude that I used to have before, and I let everyone in the group know that, yeah, you can outthink everyone, and you can be smarter than everyone, and you can make everybody else feel small and belittle them and get your point across, but it gets nowhere. So my hope for everyone on this beyond this panel moving forward is that we really take that approach of healing and not always slamming the hammer. And you hear that one quote, like, you're not going to get much done with a fist, but with an open hand. So that's where I'll end, Brett.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nate. Appreciate it. And sorry I skipped you for a second there, but
No
Saleha, now you're up. Give us your closing perspectives. We'd love to hear.
Well, first off, I want to say I think it's I feel really honored to be on this panel with all of you and with all the attendees. I think it's really great that we're having this discussion. I've never been a part of a discussion like this, especially with a lot of people that I haven't met. So this has been really great, and I enjoyed everyone's stories. And what I'm coming out of this is, what I'm starting to remember is this, one of my favorite quotes by Dr. Maya Angelou, where she says, when you know better, you do better. And I think that really applies here. And I feel that way about myself when I, as I'm learning with all of you, I feel like I'm also growing, and I can also help the movement. And I like your idea, Ashley. I think, if you get any info, just let me know.
For sure. We're going to make this happen. I mean, it's such a beautiful way to solidify and allow this to continue to evolve from where it started. Okay, Fiona.
Sorry, I was slow on the unmute there. I think that I had like a closer I was going to say, but some people said some really great aspects that I wanted to touch on and kind of include it with my closer. So for Dr. Izadi, Ashley, education, absolutely. Education is 100% one of the main factors in how this is going to change. And if we can get, children to not miss as much school, whatever it may be, we're providing more for the community. We're trying to educate. To kind of give my own story, I am, as Jenny mentioned before, I am multiple different cultures. Just to give you an idea, on my mom's side alone, she's half Cuban, half Cuban, half Indian, born and raised in Jamaica. So it's a lot of different cultures and understandings. And for me, because of that, I didn't see the differences. And I know that sounds weird, but it's more like, this is just my mom. We're not, and if you see my mom visually, she does not look like me. She looks like she would be a South Asian. But she, I didn't identify or notice that there was any difference between us. This was just my mother for me. And it literally wasn't until I was young teens, like middle school it would have been, that one of my classmates, I moved to a new school, one of my classmates saw me with my mom and said, "How is that your mom?" And, for me, it was like, but I don't understand what you mean. Like, she's just my mom. Like, it didn't click that they're seeing a different ethnicity and not identifying us as related. So, educating is going to help to relieve those mindsets, those microaggressions, those questions that are really coming from a place of not being as educated as you should be about different cultures and people coming together, or just others in general. And then I really want to do, I think that's great, that call of action as well too. I think that is something that we definitely should talk about as a group and see how we can get that up and going. you know, I thank you guys so much for coming tonight, for, you know, having these conversations. For me, it's very difficult to discuss sometimes because I don't know how it's going to be taken by others. What am I going to receive back from others in my honesty and in my, you know, openness and being just there. So I thank you, and I thank everybody that attended. You know, this is going to help in changing everything. I know some of you have seen this show. Sorry, it's a little bit long. Just one more point. I know everybody has seen, or most people have seen, love Dave Chappelle. And he did a post where it talks about critical mass, and nothing changes until you hit critical mass. And I'm hoping that this is critical mass and that everything will change because of this.
Yes, yes. And I think change is happening right now. And even since we started this program, I think there's change. We're making progress. And I love the call to action. This is exciting. Ali, how about you?
Thank you everyone for sharing again. I think I kind of want to end off where I started essentially, which is making sure that this is not a moment, but more of a movement. So what social media is really great for is we can take this idea and we can share it with the masses. But what it also does is it creates trends, right? What's trending right now, everyone gets on board, and then it eventually dissipates when it's no longer the hot idea or the thing that's, you know, on everyone's top of mind, not what everyone's searching for. So I think it's very important for us to keep this conversation going. Also very good that we are educating ourselves. I think everyone in here, it's, even for myself, it's very easy when I put up my social media post, when I put up my black square to pat myself on the back, you know, check mark, I've done my duty, right? But then you got to, you know, it made me think, what can I really do? So I think it's very important for us to always ask that question, to see what we can actually do to make a difference. It's very important for us as, you know, influencers to educate ourselves and then educate others, right? Because that's how the network grows. That's how more people grow. And it's all about not bringing the sledgehammer, educating others, because that's how we get a viral growth to disseminate racism. When everyone understands at first that it exists and the disparities that exist and how to equal the playing field. And it's not going to happen overnight, but there needs to be that action where we are educating others while we're educating ourselves and continuing this conversation going forward. And I just want to say thank you so much, Brett, for bringing this to fruition and taking, you know, our, you know, small little group of conversations and really bringing it to the masses.
Awesome, awesome. This is just amazing. And I mean, now, you know, you want to go for, how do you pronounce your name?
Mino.
Mino. Okay, Mino. I got it right at the end. Okay, please be our last closing statement. I just want to say, you know, as we approach the close, for those that might drop off, CE certificates will be sent to the email that you registered with, and so expect those within the next 48 hours. Mino, go ahead and close us out.
Yeah, thank you so much. This panel has been so eye-opening for me. Ashley, I love your idea for call to action. We actually, every year in my practice, we do what we call a free day of dentistry. And last year we did that. And many of you probably have been involved in something like that. And to be able to reach out to some of our communities or reach out to some of our dental suppliers, you'll be amazed at how much people will donate for a cause like this. And it was so heartwarming every time we do something like this, how much people will come out and really support us. So to be able to do something like that with a group like this and a movement that we're talking about and have talked about tonight, I think would be an amazing thing to kind of push us forward and send that message out, like you said, Ali, to the masses. And so I really appreciated listening to everybody's story. And I think this is where it starts. This is where it starts. It's super cool.
Totally agree. Well, everyone, thank you so much. All of our panelists. This has been so amazing. So much love, so much enlightenment and sharing. And it feels so good to share and to know that this program is going to impact people. I have one small call to action for all of us, and I know that we all on our social media have a lot going on, but I'm going to create an on-demand link so that others can view this at their own time. And I'm going to ask that for 24 hours that we all direct some promotion to the link, whether it's in your bio or what have you, and just continue to talk about it now that it's in the past, how amazing it was. And hopefully, even if it reaches just one other person who these stories might help, either to maybe recognize things that they're doing that aren't right, or for someone to feel inspired by some of the stories that they've heard, and for that to give them hope and maybe to spark a conversation in another group and a different mastermind. So I'll get those out to you guys by email or through the our chat box. But I want to thank everyone. CE certificates will be forthcoming. Thank you to all the participants that were here listening and contributing to the chat box. And thank you to this amazing, diverse, beautiful panel of dental professionals. I'm so blessed to have been a part of it and to be part of our beautiful profession. And let us continue to lead the way so that the dental profession shows everyone else how it's done.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.